Tonight on The GOAT Show.
He does not know who AVN is. This is all AI generated.
The game era.
A list with 1,000 girls.
That if he ever came out to run, he would run as a Republican.
No simping is what he's saying.
It was just the right amount.
Man, you setting them up and knocking them down. Don't lie.
Yeah, I went out about 70 to 80 nights in a row.
Vegas. Welcome to The GOAT Show, the show where we celebrate and debate all things great. My name is Zilly. I am joined by my co-hosts, Fresh and Deezy. Gentlemen, how you feeling today? You feeling all right?
Feeling great.
Are you feeling like successful men? Are you feeling like high status individuals today?
Well, you can't smell me, baby. I smell like money.
I figure you always smell good, Fresh. Same with you, Deezy.
Not always, bro. Not always. Don't give me too much flowers. We work hard in these streets, and sometimes, you build up a little sweat. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, sometimes you can't always be. Sometimes you got to do the hard. Sometimes you got to do the hard work to improve yourself, to elevate your status. And today we're gonna be talking to a very special guest who's gonna help us figure that out. No matter what status you are as a man or a woman, maybe, or a they, I don't know. No matter what status you're at, you can always improve your status. So we'll be talking to him shortly. Someone that, that just a great person. And man, the amount of information everybody's going to learn today is going to be amazing, which means that, Fresh, what do the people watching absolutely have to do if they want to elevate their status?
You got to like, you got to subscribe, you got to hit the bell, you got to drop a comment. You got to send it to your dad, your uncle, your brother, your cousin.
I want the people watching out. Normally we just say that shit and then we hope that people comment. No, I want you out there, whoever's watching, I want you to say, what are you going to do to elevate your status? Maybe comment that if you have an opportunity today, because our guest today is none other than Goats. What's something that happens once a month, makes no damn sense, and when it does happen, we, the men, get blamed?
That's easy, bro. Like the end of the sentence, a period. Once a month, like clockwork, everything's going great, and then the Wi-Fi will go down or the AC's not cool enough, and guess who's getting the blame? Me.
As a married man, I put the blame on me every day like Akon, even when she's not flowing. And I'm not talking about rap, all right? But she found this product and it really helps. It's called NanoPads from NANNOCARE.com. These things got some patented nanogenic technology in the pad, and it actually helps relieve cramps without chemicals or anything weird. Just science doing its thing.
Dang, sounds like a game changer. And if you're a lady goat, you definitely should check out NanoPads by NANNOCARE. They are the best in the business. And if you go to NANNOCARE.com and you use the code GOAT, GOAT, you can get 10% off your first order of your NanoPads. NANNOCARE.com, NanoPads, less mess, less stress. And now back to the show. Tristan Darshan, if I pronounce that correctly, he is I would say, I'd say men's success podcaster, but I think just success in general podcaster. And he's also an amazing event host with the Men of Action organization, Michael Sartain's group, which I have been a part of and gone through some of the courses and went out to Vegas and had a fantastic time learning so much. So Tristan, welcome to the GOAT Show. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. I'm excited, and I really appreciate you guys having me.
Of course, man. It's our privilege. No doubt about it. So like I said, I met Tristan through the Men of Action program with Michael Sartain. He's actually the person that convinced me to take the plunge. And so he's definitely a man who knows how to speak persuasively, but also, the program was great. I learned a lot, and it definitely improved a lot for me. I'll tell you, specifically, I would say the Instagram part of it has been huge. And then also just understanding, different dynamics between people, male, female, or just, being, low status, high status, those types of things. So yeah, but before we get into all that kind of stuff, Tristan, let's just learn a little bit more about maybe who you are as a person. The question we ask all of our guests on this show is, if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
I've actually thought about this before. I would say, because logistics trumps everything, the one thing that would eradicate logistics is teleportation. So teleportation would be the one that I would want.
Interesting. Cool. Well, from superpowers to superhero origin stories, what was your life like, growing up? Did you grow up in, where did you grow up?
I grew up in New York City. I grew up in Queens.
Love New York. My brother's actually there. And what would you say, life growing up, what was it like? How, because I know eventually you made it your way to Harvard, which is very impressive. And I'm just kind of curious sort of what maybe your life experience was up to that point. In terms of just, I don't know, what was it good? Was it easy? Was it hard? Like, and we don't have to go into all the details, but I'm just saying, like, just want to get a sense of what your journey has been.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely was a bumpy road for sure. Growing up in, places like Queens, it's not like when you think of New York City, like what do all the people think of? They think of like Manhattan, which is like the really bougie parts and stuff like that. And I grew up in Queens, so more specifically Jamaica, Queens, like 50 cents from South Jamaica, Queens. So it's like literally the same neighborhood. And yeah, it was definitely tough. So my parents had me when they were very young. And obviously from like your research stuff, like my father got incarcerated. So I had to like grow up in those situations. Didn't really have my father. I actually got to see my father quite often, actually, even though he was incarcerated. But yeah, like dealing with that, had a single mom, was basically raised by my grandparents. And I spent most of my life in Queens. And then for my high school years, I moved a little bit out east to Long Island, right on the border of Queens, basically was still in Queens. Went to school there, then went to Boston, got into Harvard after that.
Cool. I won't hold it against you. I'm a BU guy. I want to BU.
I'm actually at Harvard right now, calling in from the show.
Oh, really? What? What's going on over there?
I mean, I'm still at Harvard.
Oh, shit. I didn't realize that. Okay. I thought you were out in Vegas. Okay. Cool. Well, that's what I'm wondering. Like, how did you get involved then with, Michael Sartain, MOA, Vegas, that whole deal, while you're still, in Boston?
Yeah. So I actually took a couple years off. That's why I'm finishing school so late. That's why this is my last semester, even though I should have graduated like 2 or 3 years ago. So my freshman year was the year COVID happened. So back then, when COVID first happened, the first school to like kick everyone out like mid-semester was Harvard. They were the ones who first did that in the country, and then basically everyone else followed suit, right? So my freshman class was affected by that. When that actually happened, at the time I was already networking. So I was networking with this one YouTuber. He's been on Michael's podcast before. His name's Arlen Moore. And he started like a men's self-development coaching program. And I was part of his like sales process, right? It was like the first sales gig I ever did. And that was really great learning experience. And then through him, I met a lot of other people, right? Like networking, you kind of see as like we talk about in MOA, right? It's like a web, it's like nodes, right? So like when I'm tapping Arlen's nodes, like it expands even further than that. Basically, long story short, I was on the gap year, taking time off because of COVID, working sales, and needed to get away for a while. And Boston, New York, super strict on the COVID shit. But what wasn't strict on COVID at all? Florida. So I went to Florida for this one weekend, and I had this friend of Arlen's who was doing this photo shoot at this mansion. And for insurance purposes, I can't say who Arlen's friend is, but this story is going to make sense. I'm at this mansion photo shoot. Remember, we just had like in Boston, we were having the Vax card stuff. No one was going out. Everyone was masked up. Florida, they didn't give a shit. They didn't care at all. Yeah, and I arrived to this house, and like 20 or 30 girls in bikinis show up to this place. And then there's this one guy who brings all these girls there, and it's Michael Sartain. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, okay, who the fuck is this dude? So I got to meet Michael, and I thought he was gonna be like some guy who was like this Miami promoter player type of guy. And apparently when we start talking about like physics, intellectual concepts, philosophy and stuff. So the guy was really smart. And for Michael, I met the other business partners in MOA at the same event. And I remember like them telling me about MOA. A bunch of clients were there and stuff. This was like when MOA literally had like maybe 25 to 30 people. This is like
Right. I wanted to ask you about that. Like, so it had just started.
it was maybe like 6 months to a year in with like the first batch of clients. Like we didn't have school, we didn't have one-on-one coaches, we didn't have networking coaches. Like Casey wasn't here, Anthony wasn't here. It wasn't like any of that. But yeah, I was like, okay, it piqued my interest. I really liked it. And so I always stayed in touch with Michael. Then about a year after that, I was with another business partner and things didn't work out between us. So once I severed ties with my previous business partner, after Arlen, then I hit up Michael and that team, and then I started being their sales guy. At that point, MOA was maybe 5 people. So it was me, the C-suite, and yeah, it was basically 5 people. Then now we're at like 60, I think, employees now, 70 employees. So I've basically been in the beginning. And yeah, it's been great. Then Vegas ties directly into this. So I wanted to get out of New York. I was living with my family for a little while. It was just like there was nothing to do. It was very depressing. I didn't know where to go. And I was speaking to Michael on the phone, and they were like, well, what about Vegas? I'm like, I've never been to Vegas. They're like, you should come out. And the first time I ever went to Vegas was when I moved to Vegas, and I was still 21. And Michael had an extra room in his place, and I started living with him while I started working there. And then, it was history from there.
I have a question about sales, man. Is there any, let's say you're new to sales or for what you've learned recently? Because I mean, you sold me, man. I mean, and I don't say that in a negative way at all. Like I'm happy. Like it was great.
Bro, selling Indian guys is hard, man. I trust me, I know. It's the most difficult thing to do.
Man, these Jeters, man, you don't even know what you got to do. So if you're able to do it with me, that means that you are, an accomplished, excellent salesman. Can you give some advice?
Well, you know what's the funniest thing? What my favorite part is, because I told Mike about this all the time, is the fact that you and your brother joined separately. That's the funniest shit. That's how I know our sales team was good. We closed 2 Indians separately who happen to be brothers.
Yeah, because I just saw an ad on Instagram, and I remember seeing Michael on PBD. That's where I first saw Michael. He was on an episode of I think the Stars. I don't know if Saw's cast, which I don't know if he still does that, but yeah, that's where I saw Michael for the first time, and I liked a lot of what he was saying. It made a lot of sense even then, before there was any men of action or anything. And then when I saw the ad, I was like, okay, like I recognized that he was this dude that was a master networker and all that kind of stuff, and then I was intrigued, and that's something that and I'll be honest. All right. I've been messing with this show, man. Don't hold it against me. I'm going to get in those courses. I'm almost done. I promise. I know everybody's shaking their head at me. Casey's getting mad at me. We had him on the show earlier. We'll put it in the show notes. But yeah, I mean, I saw the ad, and then it turns out that my brother saw the same ad, and then we both joined. And then I think you got me confused with him or something, because you didn't know that he was my brother. And then it was like this weird, like, it's like, oh shit. Okay. Like I didn't even know. Did you know that? Like, I didn't even realize he was in it till I asked you. And then you're like, oh, is your name, Keith? And I was like, no, it's Ravine. It's like, oh, is he a member? It's like, yeah. And I messaged him or whatever.
No, I think you called me casually, and you were like, yeah, I'm coming to Emerge. I'm like, cool. And you were like, can Catan come? I'm like, who the fuck? Like, who's Catan? He's like, that's my brother. I'm like, oh, wait, Catan Chan's your brother? I didn't know that.
Well, it just goes to show, like, you guys know, how to target and what you're doing, because we're both trying to, grow our networks and do all that kind of stuff.
We have 2 brothers in MOA, and we actually have a father and a son in MOA too.
Did they come together though, or was it separate?
Yes, they came together. They did come together.
Okay. Okay.
It's Randy and Randall. Their father son. Yeah.
I do want to ask you, like, I mean, from your experience so far, I mean, is there something in sales that you can say, maybe 1 or 2 tips that makes for, an effective salesperson?
Yeah, I think like being good at sales is just being a good listener and a good communicator. So it's not about like knowing sales techniques. It's about becoming just a more communicative person in general, right? So you can learn things that help you in sales that are not within sales, such as public speaking, acting, looking at speeches, etc. So my biggest thing is like study like the best communicators. Look at what they do. Look at how they emulate. Like look at how they put themselves out there, because those are the best salespeople, right? The best salespeople are not the people who are on like Zoom, like selling you over the phone. The best salespeople are like the politicians who are giving speeches to thousands of people, right? The best people are like Tony Robbins giving seminars to thousands of people and then upselling them after, right? Those are the best salespeople, right? So I really like to study just good communicators in general. Podcasters, great podcasters. Being good at podcasting will help you at sales, right? I have no doubt if Chris Williamson was a salesperson, he would crush it because of his ability to ask questions, listen, get people to speak, etc. So that's my biggest thing. And then in terms of like practical things, always got to start with the way of the wolf. There's no way around it. Like that's like the Bible of sales. And then from there, I will go Cole Gordon, Jeremy Miner. Like those are the two guys that I've studied the most.
Is there a book from them that, or either of them, that you would recommend that we could put in the show notes?
No, they have online courses. I don't think they have books. But yeah, it's funny. I've networked my way into being friends with Jeremy. But yeah, and getting to ask him questions, he's absolutely brilliant.
I know that you also you host events, right? And you know, part of what Michael does with MOA is he has certain events that he hosts, charitable events, which are really amazing. I'm just kind of curious, in your opinion, what makes for a good host? Like, what makes a good host for an event?
It's such a repetitive answer. You've probably heard us say it 1,000 times is who can get the hottest girls to your event? It just is. Like, it just is. Like, there's no way around it. Like, what made the Ignite party good? Well, it's not because Dan Bilzerian was like this good, charismatic speaker who spoke well to you, right? He barely speaks, and he's like really brash, and he like has a fucking weird haircut. Like, and he'll tell you this, right? His ability to secure just the hottest women in the world in one venue, and the fact that he could get celebrities and artists to come at the same time, that's what made the event good. Not that it made him a good host, but that's what made the event great.
There's no disadvantage to having lots of beautiful women at any event. Doesn't matter what you're doing.
You want to hear something crazy? I'm friends with a lot of models. And do you know what's an event that a bunch of them were at recently? The inauguration. Now, they weren't on the Capitol Rotunda watching Trump get sworn in, but like, for example, when the Super Bowl's in Vegas, right, there's a bunch of parties that happen around the Super Bowl. When the inauguration happened, there's plenty of parties. Like Dan Crenshaw was DJing his own parties and stuff like that. So there's massive parties that a lot of these political people go to. And what do those parties have? Beautiful women. I saw so many of my model friends in Washington, D.C. Last week or 2 weeks ago. Right. So even for like a presidential inauguration, that stuff is happening. Right. So I think that's what makes a great event, because it truly is a very hard skill. It's a very hard skill. It's like the hardest thing that I've had to master, and I've had to study and master a lot of shit. This has been the hardest skill for sure.
Yes. All right. Well, then let's get into that. Well, first thing I want to ask you before we get into, because just for those who are watching or listening, you know, the Men of Action program, Michael Sartain, and correct me if I'm saying this wrong, but like a core component of it that separates it from, say, other programs for men or other programs for networking, or whatever, is that it's a program that also teaches you how to you know, host events, how to have a group of beautiful women, high status men, whatever it is around you, and then use that to be able to do what you want to do, which is, you know, if you want to, you know, date from that, cool. If you want to try and network and close business deals or whatever, like, you can do that as well. So, you know, so I definitely want to get into that, but I also want to ask you first, you know, when you met Michael and you started doing all this, were you already good with the ladies, man? Or was this something that you kind of had to hone as a skill and fine tune to be able to do the high status networking thing?
No, dude, that was pretty bad. I had to get better, not because I necessarily wanted to get better. Obviously I did, but because I had to get better. Because you have to imagine this, right? Like, I go from like being this like nerdy guy in high school, right? Obviously I didn't have status in high school till the very end of high school. But if you have status at the end of high school, what the fuck does that matter? But I got status once I was going to like Harvard. That's when I got status in high school. But I had a month left to go at that point. So then there's that. Then you got here, I had my freshman year, was not really that social experience. And then COVID happened, which obviously didn't help with that. Then you so you go from like being around nothing and then being around everything. And I specifically remember like I go from being around nothing, and then literally like within 6 months, overnight almost, when I moved to Vegas, I'm like around like some of the top models in the world, going to the bikini conference. I remember this one. Here's a funny story. I remember this one time I was talking with Michael, like we were talking about like what my type of girls and stuff like that, and I literally showed him like my like top 10 like girl, like perfect girl, and he takes the phone. He's like, oh yeah, you'll meet her tomorrow. She'll be at my thing. I'm like, the fuck do you mean you'll meet her tomorrow? I'm like, yeah, she comes all my shit. Like, you'll meet her tomorrow. And indeed, I did meet her that next day. That is a true story. So, so being like going from like nothing to everything, it's like, it's not like I even had the chance to climb up. Like, all right, let me try to go to some bars and clubs. Maybe the women get more attractive. Then I'll go to like other places. Then I might go to another city. Then I'm going to go to these competitions. Like, nope, it wasn't like that. It was literally like overnight. He started thrusting me into these situations. The thing is that you just don't know what the fuck you're doing. And I can swear on this, right? Do you guys care?
Oh yeah. No, so all you like. Say whatever the fuck you want.
You don't know what the fuck you're doing at that point. And but no, it was a great learning experience because like I had to like learn all the steps very quickly, and I was forced to very quickly. And that's why I'm also a coach now. I'm not just their sales guy. It's because I can help guys go through those steps very quickly. So yeah, just a lot of immersion, a lot of just going out there, a lot of like learning, like emulating Michael, seeing what he was doing. And yeah, it was an amazing experience. But no, I was absolutely not always like this by any means. It was something I really, really had to build. I do remember to start building this. I think I went out in Vegas probably like 70 to 80 nights in a row.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I went out about 70 to 80 nights in a row.
Let's talk about this because there are many programs for men and dating and this type of thing. And I think a lot of it comes out of, I'm going to age myself, but my era, which is like back in 2004,
The game era.
the game, Neil Strauss. Okay. And for many, many years, it's been this thing where, okay, like go to bars and clubs. Here's all your, outer game tactics for talking to women and, doing all these things. And then there's this other side, the inner game. You got to like get your confidence and build yourself up and all this shit. Right. And then going through the Men of Action program is so interesting because the program's not designed necessarily to be a like, get laid program. Let's just put it out there. It's really not designed to be that.
Thank you for saying that, because everyone says that. It's like they think it's all this pickup stuff, and it's like mindset, leadership, focus, time management.
I mean, I'll be honest. The ad that I saw on Instagram has all the hot ladies, but of course it's going to have all that because most guys aren't sitting there going, I want to be a high status networker. Most guys are going like, how do I, improve my game or whatever. But once you get into it and you go through the course, like a lot of it is not that. A lot of it really is about, networking and how to improve, your status. But, part of that is, of course, getting a group of female friends around you and all that kind of stuff. But I guess what I want to, for anybody maybe watching, I wanted to get your input on that. So is it better? I mean, should you learn these like pickup skills as a man, or should you skip that shit and go straight to the high status networking side of things?
No, you shouldn't. Like you should. I'm taking a pretty clear stance on that. I truly believe my job in MOA is literally like, I think this is about 60% of my job at this point with the coaching is just deconditioning pickup shit from people. So my answer is no. It'll make my job a lot easier.
So no, don't do all that pickup shit. Just, it's better to come in clean.
No, absolutely not.
You're not just manipulating them. You're manipulating yourself in that shit too. Like when you're learning that pickup artist shit, you're learning to manipulate your own brain. And I agree. I don't think you should learn it.
Yeah, I don't think you should learn it at all, because my problem with it is there's two things, right? And this is where I have a problem with it. It's not even about the techniques, about their effectiveness and stuff like that. Generally speaking, let's say you present yourself as an expert at something as men, right? Take any field. If I present myself as an expert physicist or an engineer or a doctor, I need to be able to show evidence and credibility that I am what I say I am, right? Right? I have to be able to do that. For me to go to a place like Harvard, I have to show some credibility and evidence. Like for me to close you on a sales call, I had to show some credibility and evidence that we were who we say we were. You know what makes millions of dollars sold hundreds of books and courses, and never had to show any evidence at all of who they say they were, pick up. It's just very interesting to me. All these world-renowned pickup artists that I see on YouTube and stuff like that, they never have girls around them. Just never do. Like, how can we possibly tell that you are who you say you are? Right? That's the first thing. And then the second thing is I'm very shallow about this. Do you know why I hung around Michael over everyone else?
Because of the type of women?
It's because he just had hotter girls than everyone. Shallow. Didn't see that with anyone else. That's it.
Hey, it is what it is.
Yeah. I just know a lot of guys who are really good with women, and I just don't believe any of them were in pickup. A lot of them were like aware of pickup, and they know about like the game and stuff like that. That's true. Like even Dave Bilzerian knew what the game was, but they weren't pickup artists, right? That's not why they were successful.
And you bring up an important point, which is something that I definitely want to deep dive into right now. Is in society in general, status is what is the attractor for not just women, but in general. What is an influencer? What is a celebrity? What is what I'm saying? Like, that's always been the case. And even if you're like in high school or whatever, right? Like, okay, there's like the cool kids club or whatever. And that's where, what I'm saying? Like, it's it's as straightforward as you can imagine. Like, that's what it is. So it makes sense. Like, okay, fine. Even if you want to learn some basic, whatever skills, whatever, improving your status is ultimately at the end of the day, what matters. If you want to, escalate in terms of the types of people you're dating or the kind of friend group you have or your business or whatever. So, I know on your Instagram, it's like you demonstrate like the status. You demonstrate, three things that I want to talk to you about. The first thing is IVE. Second is SMV, and the third thing is pre-selection. So maybe can we go through each of those? IVE is irrefutable visual evidence. Is that accurate?
Yep, that's true.
And what qualifies as IVE for men? Say
basically take everything pickup artists do and do the opposite. I'm kidding. Anyway, what qualifies as irrefutable visual evidence is like when I first met Sertain didn't tell me about the girls he was around. He just was around them. Right? There was no like he never, even to this day, he doesn't really say anything. It just happens, right? Bilzerian, when I'm with him, does not talk about the girls that he's been around, unless you ask him, of course. He just like, it's just there on his Instagram. It's just evident, right? So irrefutable visual evidence is like, okay, like if, let's say whatever your value is, you can show that this is what your value is and back it up. That could be anything, right? Like we have a bunch of guys in MOA who, like there's this one guy named Liam. This guy's like a DJ and a trumpeter, and he's awesome, and he just kills it out in Sydney. But like he has all this evidence of him at these places doing these events, and it's so much fun. Girls are having a great time. When he messages girls to go to these events, they get a high response rate, right? That's irrefutable visual evidence, right? It's like, okay, what is your value, and like what is the evidence that you provide said value? That's how I would define it.
Right. And then SMV, sexual market value, same kind of story. I mean, it varies between the sexes, but kind of the same thing. Like you have there's a certain list of things that kind of indicate your status. Part of it for men can be, and it's not exclusive though. But part of it is like, say, whether your wealth, let's just be real, like your wealth, are you fit, but then it's also things like, just being like your charisma and, the way you behave around people of high value or women or whatever. So, and then the idea of pre-selection, which is, look, pre-selection worked on me, man, for MOA. I saw Michael hanging out with a bunch of hot chicks and I was like, I wonder what this is all about. Let me at least like check out his website and see what's going on. Right. But if we're talking about dating or whatever, pre-selection is powerful. It having other beautiful women around you makes other beautiful women wonder what's going on. So I think it's the reason I bring all this up is because I see a lot of talk about modern dating, what I'm saying? And it's like, oh, the dating apps don't work. Dang it. I can't find anybody on dating apps. If you're a guy, I am finding nobody. If you're a woman, I'm not finding the guys I want to be with. Right. And so what I find interesting about what you guys talk about is that, hey, listen, the best dating app in the world is freaking Instagram. and one of the things you guys talk about a lot is just fix your fucking Instagram, which is what I learned. So I'm just kind of curious, like, can you speak on that? Speak on the sort of the dating culture in the best way for people now to be able to demonstrate, to find an attractive partner.
Yeah. No, I really like this question. So let's go back to what you said about SMV. I don't like that term so much in my view because like a market, generally speaking, and we're getting very nerdy, a market, barring like crashes or other existential factors, is like stable for a certain amount of time. Like the value of a stock is there for whatever amount of time, right? Like usually if it's a certain price today, it's going to be around that certain price tomorrow. It's pretty like it doesn't fluctuate as much barring external factors. The thing with calling it a market is that I know from just personal experience it's not that, right? Status is not always something objective. Status is a feeling that you have about people, right? It's a feeling. You don't assign status on them always based on their objective status. You assign status based on how you feel about the person, right? So the reason I say that is because there are so many situations, and I've been to these events where, like, for example, the guy might be taller than me, richer than me, but he acts low status or he supplicates or he does all these things. And that makes his status lower, but mine higher. Even though objectively I might not be higher status, I am perceived as higher status. So status is a feeling that women and people just have about you, right? Like you did immersion, right? You did immersion, right? Remember when they teach you how to talk your way into these events, talk to the host and stuff like that? You don't have status. You're literally a nobody in these situations. But they feel that you have status, so therefore you do, because what's perception is reality at that point, right?
Right. And it's one of those things where, Michael was even like, hey, you can drop my name if you need to. And it's like, oh, okay, that's status. You can drop someone's name, and just because you're associated with that person, and again, sure, you can look good, you can dress well, you can do all the shit.
I mean, dude, even if you didn't know who Michael was, like, I didn't even get to do that when Michael first moved here. Here's an interesting thing. I speak to some of the guys on our team, and I actually tell them, I'm like, bro, you guys have it so easy because Michael will do a lot for you. Like he'll get you an event, he'll introduce you to these girls and stuff like that. Now, Michael has done more for me than anyone in my entire life. There's no question about that. But when I first moved to Vegas, here's how Michael was like, hey man, yeah, I'm taking these 6 girls to this table. I can't get you in. Figure out how to get in. That's it. That literally was it. He's like, yeah, just figure it out. And I had to figure it out. I had to talk my way in. I had to demonstrate status, had to dress the right way, everything like that. So yeah, the thing about the SMV is I just think status is a feeling that they have about you. And the one thing to go back to your question about the Instagram stuff, because people feel that dating apps do suck. Here's the one thing where pickup would have been helpful is that we, debate whether it was effective or not. It still did get guys to go out, right? It did do that. And we have to give credit where credit is due. Before all this stuff got taken off, you saw Owen Cook out there doing sets. By the way, Owen Cook is really good with women. He just is. He's exceptionally charismatic. He's awesome. Really good friend of mine. I just hate a lot of pickup stuff, and he knows that, but he's really, really good. But anyway, it's like that. Them going out is better than them staying in and being on dating apps, right? Like they're better off doing that, even if they have no knowledge, no nothing. So I'll give pickup credit for that. The Instagram specifically is like, it's just so much of a better way to do it. And man, I see the leg up that it gives me. And because I'm a little spoiled in the sense that, like, if you think about my day-to-day life, I'm talking to Michael, then I'm talking to MOA guys, and I'm talking to, like, you guys. So I'm almost like in this echo chamber, right? Where like everyone has their, like, wait, you don't have pre-selection on your Instagram? Like, it doesn't even, like, that's not even a thought to me. Like, bro, everyone has IV. Everyone has a good Instagram. Everyone has this, right? Like, I talk to 100 guys every week on the Tuesday call. Like, all of them are doing events. All of them have, like, 6 female friends. And in my mind, like, oh, I'm like, yeah, doesn't everybody have that? And then, even yesterday I had a conversation with a guy and like they see my Instagram and they're like, bro, like, how do you do? They were asking like what I was doing. I'm like, yeah, dude, like, and I said it like this because I was really tired. I was like, yeah, it's gonna be a chill night. Club gave me a comp table behind the DJ booth. I'm taking like 6 girls. I'm just gonna go for an hour and then go to sleep. And they're like, what? I'm like, wait. Like, they're like, wait, how do you get the girls to show up? I'm like, just Instagram. Like, how else would you get them to show up?
A list with 1,000 girls, and then you have your regular group of from that group. You have your regular group, right? I mean, or whatever.
Yeah. And then I was like, oh no, well, how did you get them to trust you? Wait, how did you get this job? And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, oh, he's not in the echo chamber. Now I have stepped out of the echo chamber. And I'm back in reality now, and I'm like, oh, most guys don't even understand this. And like, look, these are Harvard guys too, right? And like, they even want to understand this.
And just so, and I think it's important to again, it's not just about sure, it's about getting other women and stuff. All guys want to improve that on some level if they're not married or whatever. But it's really just Instagram's a great way. Like it's just that thing that flipped in my mind where I was like, oh wait, this is the way you present the cool, interesting things that you're doing in your life. And even if you're not like trying to do this thing with like the status networking or whatever, like if you're an artist, it's like, okay, like demonstrate your artist life, you know what I'm saying, through your Instagram, like through your stories, like live that story and present it. I was talking about that with a friend of mine. I won't name him, but he's a musician, and I'm like, dude, like it's like you got to do your Instagram, bro. Like whether you like it or not. I mean, there's just no in this modern era. It's like it's like you can't just put out a song or put out a record and be like cool or whatever. It's like no, you got to like think about that almost as your product. And then everything else kind of like builds out from that.
Robin, it's even actually worse. You can be objectively better than a guy, but if he has a better Instagram than you, girls and people will perceive that he's higher status. It's really sad. It's really sad. I often see this a lot with the guys who are like guys who are like doctors, lawyers, engineers. They're older than me. They make so much more money. Like there are many like guys in MOA who are very well off, dude. Like what wealthier than me and Michael, bro. Because here's what social media did. It used to be like, hey, if you were this doctor, this lawyer, you're the successful guy, you get into these successful places, you meet women on your level, you meet people on your level, you live in the town that's on your level. Like it just leveled out. It was pretty fair market. The problem, so it was like status match status. Here's what happened with social media is that you have status, which is your SMV, right? How fit you are, how good looking you are, how taller you are, what's your job, how much money you make, right? That's your status. But then now there's your perceived status. So what happens to a lot of guys, and this happened to me, is I had a lot of status here, but then my perceived status was here. So this almost was discounted, and all they saw was the zero. And it happened, I see it all the time where I will meet a guy who is higher status objectively, whatever that means, quote unquote, than me. But because I have a better Instagram than him, I'm just perceived as higher than him. And it's fucked up, and it's just how it works.
Right. Well, I mean, that's the power of social media and how social media changed the social landscape. And some people lament it. And, I mean, this idea of like, say, 20% of the men getting 80% of the women or whatever, 20% of anything getting 80% of something. I guess I'm curious about your thoughts on, in general, just social dynamics between men and women, that because you have like you were saying, it used to be you're in your town and the high value people in your town is like the small group, and like it kind of shook out the way it was going to shake out, and the high status people hung out together, and then there was like medium status and then low status, whatever. Like it was like it just shook out pretty evenly. But now it's like a woman goes on social media and she doesn't have to be a 10 out of 10, you know what I'm saying? But she'll still get hit on by like, all these men who are like, just high status people across the world, So I'm just kind of curious, like, I mean, that's what made me kind of wake up and realize like, okay, like even no matter who you are as a dude, you got to like fix your Instagram. You got to like learn this game of like perceived social status. And then you have a fighting chance, you know what I'm saying? And I'll say this, going through the program and doing that, like my results are way better than they used to be, but, oh dude, night and day. And that's just switching out like Instagram photos and doing the show and just like posting clips on the show. And it's like, I mean, I'm not saying I'm like, you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying I'm out here,
Man, you setting them up and knocking them down. Don't lie.
I ain't no Tristan Darshan, all right, but I'm just saying like it's been better. So any of you guys watching out there, gotta do it. Gotta do it.
Before the show, we were kind of teasing him because he was saying that he doesn't have women, and we say, you're a liar. You're traveling, great on Instagram, We know you got holes in different area codes. Don't lie.
Okay, Tristan, let me ask you this. Because this brings up a good point, right? My whole life was, be humble, have some humility, Christian ethics and all this stuff, right? Like, don't go out here and be like that Andrew Tate feller. You know what I'm saying? So I want to know, as a man, do you have to be this dominant, you know, outspoken, whatever type of character now in order to even, you know, be a part of the dating marketplace?
You need to have some level of status, whether you're dominant or actually not. Right? That's just the way I would say it. Right? If you're around like take Bulgarian, for example, he's not like this most outgoing, extroverted. He's not like this smooth communicator. He's just not. But he can be. I think that the whatever society is telling us we should do, we should just literally do the opposite. That would be the easiest way to do it.
Interesting.
Yeah, that would be the easiest way to do it. I read a stat the other day, and this is going to sound like I'm segueing, but you'll see why I'm saying this. So you look at what women complain about, right? They complain, especially now, right? Especially liberal women, stuff like that. They complain about men who are assertive, confident. Like, it's all contributes to the patriarchy. Here's a crazy stat. 45, I'm looking at it right now. I just typed it in. 45% of women voted for Donald Trump.
It kind of should tell you everything you need to know.
Literally, it's like, okay, it just told me everything I need to know. Everything I need to know. I'm not even a Republican. I'm not conservative at all. But like, when I look at Donald Trump, I'm like, oh, like literally, you just don't have to listen to what anyone says. Like, just literally do the opposite, and you might not become president, but you'll be okay, right? Like, you'll be all right. We'll come out alive at the end of it, you know?
Well, I mean, I think only conservatives actually believe that Donald Trump is a conservative, right? Because he's like center left. So
he's whatever he needs to be. That's how I say it. He's whatever he needs to be.
I mean, listen, I said it from the beginning. He doesn't see color, race, creed, any of that shit. He just sees green. If you got money, that's all that matters.
If Donald Trump knew in 2016, if for whatever reason, if he thought that being a Democrat and being a leftist who believed in all the stuff they believe in would have let him become president, he would have ran as that. He would have ran as whatever gave him the best shot.
I think he wanted to, and they didn't want him, right? Like, they're like, oh, we're not going to support you, Donald Trump. So he had to run as a Republican.
Yeah. And you know what's the interesting thing is, like, I really believe that in 2016, I mean, I know we're segueing, but this is actually, like, I think it all ties together. I think we have no way of knowing, but the person who was like a left-leaning politician who carried themselves like Donald Trump and like acted like kind of like Donald Trump and like had no political correctness about him was Joe Biden. That was the guy, right? Interesting, that's the guy who ended up winning. But if you really think about it, there's a debate in 2012 where Joe Biden versus Paul Ryan, it's the vice presidential debate. You watch the highlights, bro. He's like laughing at the dude. He's clowning on him. Like, he starts making fun of him in the debate. He just Obama lost the first debate, got destroyed by Romney. Then Biden just clowned this dude for like 2 hours. And it was like the most landslide vice presidential debate victory ever. And I also think in 2016, he didn't have dementia yet, right? They would have had a better shot with a guy like that. But like, you have to fight a Trump with a Trump. And I think Biden could have been that guy, but not now. Not now, because he's just age genetics, man. He's just out of it. Whether we agree with one side or the other, I'm just saying strategically, I believe if Donald Trump thought that being a leftist would have let him to become president, he would have ran as that. He just ran as whatever he thought would help him win.
Yeah, and there's also interviews about him talking about that when he was younger, that if he ever came out to run, he would run as a Republican.
I think what we're seeing with Fetterman kind of is a lot of people are saying Fetterman's going to run, next time, and he has a good shot. And I'm like, yeah, I think there's the strong possibility, depending on we'll see what happens with the next 4 years. I think there's gonna be a lot of wild shit that happens in the next 4 years.
I think the Democrats are stupid enough, and they're going to run like Gavin Newsom or like Kamala Harris again. They are that stupid at this point.
Oh my gosh. Well, all right, whatever. Like, they're not going to win. At least right now. I mean, we'll see what happens, over the next 4 years. But I wanted to go back to something that that kind of maybe brings us back around. I'm just going to say, word of warning here. All right, we got Fresh here is in a committed, amazing relationship. DZ here is married. It's amazing relationship. I am not. All right, I got none of that. So I'm just kind of curious, for someone like me, is romance dead, bro? Is it over? Is it just hypergamous societal interactions? You got to spin 20 plates and then I just got to be on my business and that's it for the rest of my life.
Yeah, we thought about this question a lot, especially like in the space that we're in. And I think like whatever you want to do is on you. If you want to spin 20 plates, do that. If you want to find the one, do that. From our view, at least from Michael and I's view, to give you guys the most value, do you guys know who Psychax is? Orion Taraban? I love his content. His content's so great. He said your number one prerogative is to become as attractive as possible. And I think that is the answer. It's not what you do that's the answer. It's the fact that you must become more attractive. Because here's the thing. The way I look at it is I think a lot of guys let's say they go into a committed relationship. They, generally speaking, especially in this day and age, they're doing it with a girl that they're settling with, someone who's usually taking advantage of them. The divorce rate's 70%. Like, you guys who are in good committed relationships are married, and I'm going to assume your marriage is in a decently good spot. You are the outlier now. I hope you guys understand. You're the outlier now. So my point is, a lot of guys who are in relationships, because Robbie, actually, I get this objection sometimes on sales calls where they're like, but I don't want to be a player. I don't want to do this, all this gay shit. And they're literally, and I'm like, dude, you are not even like remotely attractive enough to even consider this problem. It's literally here's what I hear here's what I hear in my brain. I literally hear, hey man, I don't want to start this business because I'm going to make too much money. What does that even mean? I don't want to go to the gym. I don't want to get too big. You ever heard someone say that? I'm just going to get too big. Like, shut the fuck up, dude.
I used to say that when I didn't want to go to the gym. I used to say, no, I don't like guys who are too big. I don't want to look that big. I want to be able to wipe my own ass. It was an excuse because I didn't want to go. I was lazy. It wasn't real. Of course I want to be fucking massive.
Yeah, because here's my point, right? If you want to find a really good relationship, or if you want to be around a bunch of models, right? That's your moral judgment. You judge that for yourself. But to me, the answer is still the same. The answer is to become more attractive, to become the fittest you can be, to become the charismatic, to build your social media, to build your Instagram, and like have options and do it from a place of abundance and do it from a place of you're the higher status person. Whether you're in a relationship or whether you're dating a lot of women, like that, the answer is still the same, right? If you wanted to find the one, wouldn't it be better to have options that you can choose from so you could choose what's best for you and what's aligns with your values versus being settling? Because I'll even talk about it last night. I was out with a really good friend of mine last night, and he actually even says, he's like, yeah, I don't want to be a player. I want to get married by 25. I just want a good girl. I'm like, okay, cool. Then we literally go to a party, and then I outspeak him and speak to every girl there. But I'm like, okay, bro, because you don't understand this stuff, I'm going to fucking take your future wife that you clearly think exists, right? So the answer to me is become as attractive as possible, raise your status as much as possible, become that guy in your place, and then make whatever judgment you want, right? But do it from a place of options. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. And another thing I wanted to kind of pick your brain about was the idea that you in a relationship between men and women, and I think Michael said this, the woman should be in the man. The woman should be in the man more than the woman, right? I mean, what's the story?
I just want to clarify, if Harvard's bugging this room, there's no such thing, men and women. They're all equal. It's all patriarchy. Just want to clear that out there. Fucking with you guys.
But no, I mean, he was saying, he was saying that the chick should be into the guy more than the guy into the chick. Just if you kind of have that dynamic, more likely than not, you're not going to have strife in your relationship. What do you think of that?
I think
no simping is what he's saying.
No simping. Yeah, he's saying no simp. Now you have to understand, Michael is, I always default to him in a certain capacity because I understand that Michael he is so not that he's so farther along the road than me, but he just has so much more time than I have had, where he just sees things that. Here's a perfect example. I was gonna drop out of Harvard and never come back. Like I was done with it. Like, dude, we built the business. We're doing a lot. Like we're doing really, really good right now. We had the whole team going up. I was living in Vegas. I had this apartment. Nevada has no state income tax. Like literally every metric you could imagine. Obviously, you know, we know the girls at Harvard are hotter than the girls in Vegas, obviously. But anyway, every metric, Vegas was better. And like the only reason I came back was because like Michael really pushed me. Like, no, bro, finish this shit. Just get it done, and you could come back. Now I can understand that like I have a certain perspective, but he has a certain perspective that's just 25 years ahead of me because he's 25 years older than I am. So the reason I'm saying this is I think he's correct completely for the reason that, because I just think about it in terms of optionality, right? If, generally speaking, if you are dealing with attractive women, she always has options and you don't necessarily always have options.
Right. That's just the way it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So because of that, she needs to be more into you because she has more leverage in terms of her options.
Makes sense to me. Let's now that we're on a little bit of a topic about simping. All right. Let's talk about porn.
I love the way you said that in the mic. I want the topic of simping. I like that.
Well, let's talk about, because I'm on X. X is wild, bro. There's all kinds of wild shit on X.
I have Rolo Tomasi's X account because I was doing some of his social media stuff. Jesus Christ, it's a war zone, bro. It's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, well, there's so much of this strife between the sexes, and it seems like it's like kind of two groups, all right, that I'm noticing in the extremes. On the one hand, you got like the hyper incel, you know, crisis king, you know, side of things where they're like virgin for life until you have your subservient, you know, whatever Amish wife, okay? And then on the other side, you got OF hoes galore, sleeping with 1,000 dudes in 24 hours, all right? And it's just like back and forth between the two sides, right? And I would like to believe that maybe it's more that we are various shades of what's in the middle of that, okay? But I wanted to ask you about both sides. The first side I want to ask you about is, like, you just had Sterling Cooper on your show, you know, adult film star. I think now he's starting his own company, a supplement company, and stuff like that. And, you know, I wanted to get your take on like adult entertainment, like porn for men. And then on the flip side of that, this whole OF culture that's going on for women. And it seems like the hardcore incel side is like, look, if you even look at a woman's ankle, you must get on your knees and pray to God and ask forgiveness. And, you know, your manhood is compromised. Okay. And then on the flip side, you know, you have the OF side where they're like, you know, look, men are just, you know, men are for money, you know, resources. And if that's the laws of nature, then we're going to take full advantage and we'll do whatever we want. I mean, what do you think about this whole dynamic that's going on? And what is maybe what you feel is real?
Yeah. I'm glad you brought this up. So I think there's definitely more shades to it, but the shades are it's pretty bad though. It's still pretty bad. Here's how I know this. So, you know what AVN is?
Yes. Or no. Don't get mad at me, Reuters. Okay, go ahead.
He does not know who AVN is. This is all AI generated. Anyway, where's AVN every year?
Vegas.
Didn't it just happen?
Just happened. Yeah. That's why this is fresh in my mind. While I agree there are shades to, like, there's different shades, there's different spectrums to this, I still think the spectrum skews pretty far to the right. It's still pretty fucking bad. And the reason I say this is because Michael and I were at AVN, and like we were at these booths because, you know, some of our friends were there, like Pillow Talk podcast. Ryan Powell's a good friend of ours. He was doing a segment there, so we're with him. And I swear to God, there was this line. There's this long ass line of guys waiting to get their fleshlight signed by their favorite porn star. So that means they came to Vegas, flew in, got a fucking hotel room, to get a fleshlight signed
by a girl that some other guy is fucking, not them.
Yes, that hundreds of other guys are fucking.
The closest they will ever get to them is that signature.
Yes. So to answer your question, Robin, is it as bad as these incel guys? Not all of them, but it's pretty bad. It's not great. It's pretty close though.
Bro, guys are marrying their anime pillows, brother. It's bad. It is bad.
Oh, we ain't even talked about turning these Tesla bots into Tesla hoes. You know what I'm saying? We ain't even talked about that yet. Like in 4 or 5 years, we're gonna have a different debate altogether. But sorry, continue.
I feel like I'm lucky on the median of both of these things, because I met my wife in junior high. We dated, we broke up, we lived adult lives, and then we met back in later life, and now we're married. Like, there's not many of those stories that are going to exist moving forward, right? Like, I dated this girl, I've known her more than half my life before we got married, and then now here we are. You know what I mean? Like,
you live in a 1990s lifestyle, man. That was like, it used to be like, say to like your mid 20s. I was telling Fresh this, like, I miss the days where it was like 6 days of sin, 7th day of, like of purity. You know what I'm saying? Like a little bit of a balance, ask forgiveness on the 7th day. You can get back to hoeing on the 6 days. And then, yeah, like you reach your mid 20s to late 20s, although I can't speak for them.
Dude, I'm actually glad you brought that up, because I didn't get to live like this. I just wish, honestly, like, I don't wish I was born in like the 80s or something, like having all this nostalgia for a time I wasn't born in. I definitely think I wish I was like 5 or 10 years older than I am right now, because like when I grew up, I know I'm young, but like I still, compared to like even the kids who are just a couple years younger than me, I remember when we didn't have smartphones. I grew up then. I remember what it was like to have a house phone. I still remember what it was like when YouTube first came out. I remember what it was like to go to the movies and stuff. And I think like that period in like the 2000s where it's like Facebook was just coming out. We didn't have, basically smartphones kind of fucked everything. It's like you still had to dial people's number in the smartphone. You still had Facebook and MySpace, but like people still went out to parties. You still did house parties. Like the high school, like
the BlackBerry years were the greatest years up until BlackBerry. Then we got the iPhone.
Yeah, it was just the right amount,
because the BlackBerry was like having your MSN Messenger in your pocket, but it wasn't like,
yeah, you didn't need a pager.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But it wasn't like you're always connected. It's just you would get your messages, you would chat, whatever, but it wasn't crazy connected. And then they gave you a full screen.
Yeah, like you still had to go out, you still had to connect with people, like you still had to display a little bit of a status. Like it didn't skew everything. Not everyone was so glued to their phones. Like did you guys ever watch Transformers? Like the first 2 movies? Yeah, like like when like they're in high school, then they go to college, and like they're in these places. Like he's trying to get the cool car to get the girl. Like that was a great time. Like that was a good time. And I wish I kind of grew up in that time before smartphones came about. By the time I was a teenager going to college, all that's like dynamics changed,
Yeah, I mean, I talked to my nephew about that too, and it seems like there's a desire for that now, which is nice. Like I think there's a, and I don't know if that's just some kind of nostalgia kind of thing or whatever, but it seems like people are kind of wanting that more and more. And my theory is that as this AI stuff takes off and the world becomes more and more artificial, that I think the premium is going to be on real life, like authentic, real experiences and things like that. But I guess we'll see how this all turns out. But I want to go back to the OF thing real quick.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Let's finish that.
Yeah. Do you feel that that women now, younger women, do you feel like there is a more transactional type of attitude towards relationships, or do you feel like that's more just something that's invented by, this extreme conflict on X, and that there's still good girls out there, there's still women out there that genuinely want to be in good relationships and have good relationships with guys?
Yeah, it's really weird. I have, and this has been my experience, and I always like to like understand like something I learned through MOA is like I've let go of my ego, so like my experience is not the experience. So I had my experience, and then I thankfully I have a group call where I talk to 100 guys in like 20 different cities, 8 different countries every week, and I was like, all right, what's your experience? And we all came to this one conclusion. And I want to see you back on the Tuesday calls, Robin, so you can hear what we're talking about. Like Michael's on there. I'll show you. I'll have to find the recording. And we were like, hey, hey guys, have you noticed that like the hot women are easier to deal with? And everyone just raised their hand and unequivocally said yes. So here's been my experience. But now the caveat is this only works if you fix your status enough. Now I'm not saying you need to be Chris Brown or something, but if you have a competent Instagram, have good female friends, everything like that. My point is, I have noticed personally that very mid women are more entitled. I have noticed that very personally. I've seen that. I have noticed that really attractive women are more realistic. Maybe it's a sample bias thing. Maybe my stats are off, but that has, you're asking my opinion, that has been my experience.
I agree with you, and the reason I think like so I've made this observation many times, and the reason I think it is because these women who are like objectively a 10, they don't get approached by anybody. Everybody's like, oh, I'm scared to approach her. I'm whatever. They might catcall her, but they're not taking it serious because they think that she's out of their league. Where the mid, like the 6, is getting approached by everybody. Guys are telling her they worship the ground that she walks on and overinflating her sense of her worth too. And so I think that this is why the 6 is hard to deal with, and the 10 is like a little bit more humble because I don't think that she really has as much true interest as we think.
Yeah, so I think it's part of yours, but it's something I want to add to that is the 10s get approached. They just get approached in a different way. They get approached in the sense that like they get offered more cocaine or they get invited to these exclusive yacht parties. They get approached in that way. They get to see the top of the mountain. No, the top of the mountain isn't that great, so it's not that impressive to them. Right? Like no matter what I do, like Kindly Myers, big model. She's a really good friend of mine. She lives in Nashville. There's no amount of money like I can make if I want. Not that I want to sleep with her or impress her, but if I was trying to, I can't make any amount of money that would impress her. She's she makes millions of dollars a year herself. That's number one. 2, she's been with her husband for 25 plus years, and 3, she gets hit up by billionaires all the time. There's like, but because she understands what that's like, in her view, it's not, oh, excuse me. In her view, it's not as great, and therefore she's almost more humble because of it. She's not like delusional. And she's somebody.
Well, because it's not serious.
Yeah, and also like in terms of her to SMV, she kind of can demand that. She kind of can't, right? If we're being honest, somebody can demand that, just not most people. So I really see that. And I have really noticed that. So I think to what your point is, dude, I think you're right. Like in person, they don't get approached as much, but they get approached in a different way. But here's I think it's not even the approach rate. I think it's the society. Because here's the reality situation. It's what like society and feminism says. It's like all of you girls deserve this. All of you should know your worth. All of you should get that back. All of you should strive. You're all a 10. All of you know your worth. And it just doesn't work that way. It just doesn't. You can't all be that. You can't all be a 10. You can't all have that high standards. Like the market has to adjust at some point, right? That is more of the problem. As men, we get told what? Like broke boys don't deserve no pussy, short men or whatever, like all this stuff. Like men, we get like reminded of our status. Women don't get reminded of their status, right? So that's why I think is the fundamental issue with that. So because and this is my hypothesis. I hypothesize that because beautiful women are experiencing the top of the mountain, it doesn't phase them anymore. Because of that, it's the same equivalent of a guy who's around a lot of attractive women. Do you ever notice a guy who's around a lot of attractive women? He might not always end up dating the model, like long term. It's because that stuff doesn't phase him anymore because it's not novelty because he's so used to it. Yeah, he wants something more than that. And I think the female equivalent of that is the flip side of what I just described. So I have noticed personally, first off, that like more attractive, like that's what Michael always says. Like, that's why he says that. He's like, yeah, guys, like honestly, the solution is just deal with hotter girls. That was the solution the whole time. And I never thought, like, it didn't make any sense to me until I started doing it. Like, dude, because I'll do these invites. You'll see, Robin, when you start doing these invites and start like doing the program again, you will see this. You're gonna like message, and it's gonna be so counterintuitive. And like it's so counterintuitive for 99% of guys, because this is so out of their concept of reality, you will message a girl who has 500,000 followers, 1,000,000 followers, blue check mark, makes more money than you, like based off her bikini line or some shit. She will be like, okay, thank you for the invite. What's the date and time? I'll fly down. Then you're gonna message some fucking six who's like overweight with like with the baby daddy who started an OnlyFans and claims she's in the top 1%. And she's like, my rate is this, fly me out. It will make no fucking sense, but you will see it. I have had it happen several times. I just like I laugh, bro. Like, it's just like it's funny. It's just ridiculous. But yeah, it is to answer your question though, I know I go off tangent. To go back to your original question. To answer your question, I think it's pretty bad, but it's not as bad as it could be. But I also agree that it's never been easier to get out of it, right? It's like all you have to do now is like be in decent shape, have a decent Instagram, and you're already in the top 20%. I think it's never been easier to get to the top 20%.
Yeah, I can attest to that. I mean, just getting better photos, just, I mean, really, I mean, you could take away everything else. And I think that, I mean, I like to think that I got some communication skills, you know what I'm saying, that I can be a little smooth with it. But no, I mean, it's night and day. And yeah, it's like, listen, fellas, ladies, don't listen to this. Fellas, I'm talking to you. Aim high. That's the lesson of the story. All right. And fix your fucking Instagram. And you can do that with MOA.
Something I wanted to point out that you said earlier that like made me jump attention is how you said that women are not constantly reminded of their status. And another point to that is that they are reminded about their man status. So if there's something that they're reminded about is their man's status, not their own. And so that's something that I just wanted to put out there, you know.
That's true. And you notice they like to brag when that increases.
I'll even go a step further than that. They're also your woman's also reminding you and testing your status.
Ooh.
I think any guy who's been in a relationship, I have obviously not been married, but I think any guy who's dated long term can fully attest to that situation if they understand the lens we're looking through.
All right, I got one more question before we kind of close it down out here. Can women be trusted, bro? Can we trust what they say? Because I see all this stuff on X. Women shouldn't be able to vote anymore. All this stuff, and I'm like, wait. So, can they be trusted, bro? Or do we got to change something out here for the men?
Yeah. I mean, look, I do. If you post this on X, I'm gonna get massacred, and I hope you post this on X. Yeah, I'll say this. I know a lot of very intelligent women that I trust their opinions. Bro, don't say this shit on X. They're gonna fucking find me and just kill me for saying that.
Isn't like the man's job to lead and the woman's job to counsel? Isn't that kind of what it's always been? Like, so you're supposed to go to your woman for counseling and then make the final decision?
No, I'm just saying that, like, I mean, just personally, like in my experience, like I've seen women who are doctors who know what they're talking about. And maybe I'm in a place that's like biased. Like I'm around some of the smartest people in the world, but like I meet a lot of women in class. Now, do they believe in some crazy shit like this, this LGBTQ stuff? Sure. But like they understand science, they understand rationale, they understand reasoning, they contribute great ideas. Like I have met many women who are like, even Michael, his commander was a woman when he was in the Air Force, right? So I've met plenty of women who are like very competent. I would trust them in a leadership position. They do great things. I do think though, in a relationship level, I think what you're saying, dude, is like comes down to the relationship. I think in the relationship, even the women who are very masculine and like empowering, I think that stuff is great. If women want to make more money and do all this stuff, I think that's great. I just think those dynamics, they don't want those dynamics in a relationship. That's where I think it differs. And I think it's very hard to pull off, but I think a woman can like be this person in like the workforce per se, but in her home, she could be somebody else. And I have heard many women say that to me. Like over the years. So that's more of my opinion on it.
I mean, do you think if a woman earns, because this is a debate that happens a lot, do you think that if a woman earns more than a man, that there's going to be challenges in that situation? Or do you feel like it's just like, that's kind of irrelevant, and it's just there are other factors that come into play that relate to the dynamic between a man and woman in their relationship, and that you can't pin it on just that like one thing as in terms of determining what a relationship is going to be.
Yeah. Remember I said status is a feeling. Like the biggest thing I've learned is not about like the mechanism of status for Michael. The biggest thing I've learned is that we're dealing in this conversation with logic and they're dealing in emotions. And it's really hard to cross into that boundary sometimes because like we're having a logical conversation about money, but in their mind, they're just having a feeling of low status, and that's what's driving them to do it unconsciously, of course. So here's my thing. This is my hypothesis. I think the money and stuff will matter when you don't have everything else not taken care of, and that's often the case. So it's not that the guy is broke or like makes less money. It's that he's probably less assertive, less ambitious, in worse shape, like doesn't have a lot of social connections. Here's like the question I posit to you. Do you think if he made slightly less, but if he was in really good shape, had a lot of pre-selection, had a lot of status, do you think she would stay with him? I think she would stay with him. Right? I think it's like we focus on the income, but it's really like that income is a result of a lot of other shit that's making him low status. And the income is just like kind of like a byproduct. Does that make sense? That's my hypothesis.
So you would say like if the bills are paid, and again, like all the other things you're saying, so they're never going to really see that he makes less anyways.
Yeah, exactly. Now, are there some women who are very much into money? Yes. Like there is that portion of women. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that. Like my friend, like CJ Sparsh, like if you ask her how tall does he need to be? $1 million a year. Like what color does his designs need to be? $1 million a year. Like how big does his dick need to be? $1 million a year. He doesn't give a fuck. There's some women totally like that. I wish them all the best. But I don't think that's most women, dude. I just don't.
Yeah, I mean the equivalent would be like, a guy has to have a woman look a certain way. You know what I'm saying? So it kind of it goes both ways.
I've seen a lot of girls like who do better than their band, especially in Vegas, because like a lot of these dudes are broke as shit. Like they're fighting over this one broke, worthless dude, but like he still feels he's still more confident. You know, something we were talking about the other day is we talk about. Here's the very interesting thing. We talk about, like when we go on, like you guys have watched Fresh and Fit, like the crazy standards of delusion that these women have.
Dude, mine are doing the most on X. I'll tell you that much.
That stuff, that delusion lowers these women's SMV. But here's the reality situation of what people don't want to hear. If you are a guy with no status, but you're super entitled and delusional and narcissistic and confident for absolutely no reason, that does make you more attractive. Even if you have nothing going for you, it will make you more attractive, and it makes no sense because of the feelings you elicit. It does not work the other way around. When we see that with women, we're like, all right, we're avoiding this. When women see this, they're going to be like, well, all right, there's going to be some reason he's confident. Probably there's no reason, but they're going to wonder why at least,
Yeah, dude, I'll just say this. I have seen some dudes who ain't got nothing but that. And women are dying, like crawling over each other, fighting for. I've seen that in my life, like fighting each other, friendships ending.
Out here looking like the penguin with 10 women fighting over him.
Oh man. Okay, this is the last one. This is going to be the most controversial on X. All right, and I think you know what it's going to be as soon as it comes out of my mouth. Can men and women be friends?
The answer is yes, for a certain amount of guys. For 90% of you listening, the answer in your reality is probably no, right? It's just like probably isn't.
Exceptions prove rules, right? So like less than 1% of guys, and it's, I'll be honest with you, I believe it's on the men why we can't be friends with women.
1000%. It's a rule because that's a rule they put on themselves, not because the women's like proclivities put the rule and like nature put the rule. It's like it's a rule because they won't break out of that mental framework that created this rule in the first place. That's why it's a rule. No, I think the answer is yes. By the way, you know who thought women couldn't be friends? Me. I thought that for a while. I was like, okay, what is this? And that's something that Pickup portrayed. Something that then Red Pill portrayed. Like that was the most like, here's where we like, look, nobody can say, because I see all these guys, and I hope they ever watch this. I see these guys on YouTube now talking about female wings and female teammates. And look, you stole that from us. You stole that from Men of Action. We are the first people who have ever talked about that. The first person who really did it was Dan Bilzerian. The first person who talked about it was Michael Sartain in Men of Action, right? Dan Bilzerian did it before everybody. So I think that as of today, to answer your question, as of the state that we are in, it is not true. The answer is no for 90% of guys because of the mental framework that they have. I think it's possible for 100% of guys. And the other thing is, I think it's possible because it's actually one of the only things we can control. Look, we can't, there's only so much money we can make at a certain point, right? Right. We can't control where we're born. We can't control our height. We can only control our looks to a certain extent. We can't control our ethnicity. But I think we can all, with enough social calibration, learn how to make female friends. I think we can all do that. So yeah, that's the one thing. I think the answer could be yes, but it's not going to be because of that mental framework. But I think it's one of the one things that every guy I think can do.
I agree, man. I have female friends. So
If your female friend called you right now and said, yo, Ravine, I want to fuck, are you showing up?
yeah, of course.
Then you don't have female friends, bro. This is my point.
What are you talking about? They're my friend, and
No, you're a fucking bush hunter. You're a bush hunter. You're just sitting in the bush, waiting to pop out and fuck her.
I don't agree with that. This is where I don't agree. I think you sleeping with your female friend and you being friends with them have nothing to do with each other.
okay. So I can sleep with my female friends.
You can.
Okay. Just making sure.
Now here's where if your whole like prerogative from the beginning was to like be her friend to then get in her pussy, that I have a problem with. But if it like, because here's the thing, what if she like over time builds so much attraction to you and then she ends up desiring you, but she's your friend? That's a plus, right? Now there are many female friends there are female friends of mine who are like some of the most attractive women you've ever seen, and I wouldn't sleep with them. It just would feel weird. But then there's others I would, and oftentimes it has happened, but it's not because of it. Like that wasn't my intention from the beginning. My intention was just to build a social circle, and then whatever happened.
Yeah. And I think that's what to kind of put a period on the sentence. In terms of anybody watching. I think women too, but I don't know. Are there any women in MOA, or is it all men? Is it only men?
Like women could come on the calls. Like we usually actually have some, but they're not like part of the program.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think if anybody's watching who's curious about Tristan, curious about Michael Sartain and the Men of Action program, we'll put the link in the show notes. But that's what I really liked about it. I mean, just in all seriousness, is that I think a lot of guys lose before they start because they place these expectations of what they think everything should be. And what I really liked about MOA is just like, okay, look, like just build your social circle, and sure, and don't have expectations about like what everything should be. You just work on building, just like you're building yourself, building your business, building your life, whatever it is. Build your social circle, get better at your social skills, and you guys have a very clear kind of like system, not just for like the practical things, but also like how to think and how to look at philosophically how to look at things. And I think it's great, and I think it's more effective. I think ultimately that's going to produce more of the results that a person desires than this thing where it's like, I mean, half the time now when I see all that conflict, it's entertaining. I think it's funny, but I'm kind of like, it's guys, like don't be a simp, and don't try and be this like whatever fucking and I like Andrew Tate. I don't want to say that I don't like him or anything. I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of guys trying to puff their chests like him, and I'm like, listen, just check out Men of Action, build your social circle, make a lot of friends, be a cool person, be someone that offers value instead of taking value constantly or trying to find, don't be a parasite, like, be someone who spreads good cheer and offers value to people, and you'll pretty much get to where you want to go. So, yeah, Tristan, I want to ask you though, like, what do you think about the future, man? Are you optimistic about, I know me and Fresh are going to we're in trouble. We just dropped these tariffs. He's in Canada. He's in Toronto. I mean, we may not even have him on the show anymore. I mean, there is a strife between our nations. Anyway, no, I'm just saying in general, how do you feel about the future? And do you think that things are going to become more, fraught between the sexes, or do you think that this MOA stuff's gonna take, and
I mean, I do think the more fraught it becomes, the more the more men who are going to need MOA. So that might actually grow the business, honestly. Politically, I do think, I follow a lot of guys, and I think the guys that there's like 3 guys everyone like should be listening to. They don't have podcasts, but you should listen to the podcasts they've been on. Everybody's got to be following Scott Galloway, Richard Reeves, and James Sexton. Those guys are absolutely brilliant in their analysis, because what are they? They're liberal academics who understand that men have value, right? And often those don't go together. Like, I saw Chris Williamson. Do you guys watch Chris Williamson? Any of you? He posted a clip today, and the title of the clip was, "Men are seen as the problem, not as having problems." Brilliantly put. And I think if, like, politically, if Democrats can, here's how I think Democrats could win every election. If they have like a masculine macho dude who like is like a bro, but also believes in liberal policies, they would win every election, right? Because like, I don't think most guys are against abortion. I don't. So, but like the problem is they keep pushing this woke men are the problem. Like Kamala Harris is having Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion at her rallies and shit, painting men as the problem. Then they've gone way too far with the LGBTQ stuff. They're pushing that, which 90% of not 90%, but like most of the country on a daily basis doesn't really think about those issues. Right? But if you had like more of a balance, I think they would win every election. So barring that happening, I think things might go in a different direction. But as right now, it just looks pretty. It looks pretty gloomy.
Yeah. I mean, the results from I think, if anything, it's just that men voted last time. I mean, I think no matter anybody's analysis on any side, men voted because they thought one party was speaking to them more than others. So, I think that makes sense to me. Well, listen, man. First of all, thank you for coming on. Obviously, really appreciate you. And again, anybody who's interested in learning more, you have your podcast, right? That you're doing with some really great interviews on there. Michael Sartain, we'll put his links in the show notes as well. And the MOA program. Who knows? I don't know if you're still doing calls, but like maybe somebody might talk to you. I don't know. I don't know if that's still what you do, but
yeah. If they want to speak to me, just like have them hit me up on Instagram. We'll make the process even shorter.
All right. Well, listen, man. We toast the goats on this show. You're a goat, so cheers to you.
Thank you, man.
Appreciate
it. This was awesome.
I'm gonna pour one out we do pour one outs too for people who aren't doing what they're supposed to. I pour one out for myself. All right. When working on the show, I'll get back on top of the program the way I should. Fresh will stop shaking his head at me. Casey, I know. Just trying to get the GOAT show where it needs to be, which I think we're there. So
get back to work.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, man, appreciate you being on. Check out his stuff, people. And Fresh, for anybody who's been watching this show, what do they got to do?
Like, follow, subscribe, hit the bell.
All you incels out there, shut up. Check out MOA and go fuck yourself.